This video is going to cover a review for the pen tool and how to add spot colors in Photoshop. Once you are in Blackboard, you're going to click on the demo files link and then scroll down to where it says pen tool review and spot color and click on that to download the zip file. The zip file, once you find it, go ahead and double click on it to unzip it. And then you'll see in that folder there are 3 images. I am going to select all of them, right click, and open in Photoshop. If you have a different way that you like to open up images in Photoshop, then you can do it that way. We're going to start on the stop sign image. So with this image, we are going to do a review of the pen tool. If I click on the pen tool, you'll see that in the options bar that changes to see all of the options that are available for that tool. If I click on the path options icon, you can change the color of the path as you're drawing. Now this is not the same thing as the stroke. In this case, I have it set to medium blue so that way you can see the path that I'm making against the red. This is not, again, this is not the stroke, this is not a border, this is just showing me the path that I am creating. If you have path selected, it is not going to be filling in or adding a stroke. If you have shape selected, it is going to be making a vector shape and possibly filling it in as you draw, which could make it hard to draw. And then since I don't have a unlocked layer selected, I can't use pixels, but pixels would be the same thing as just almost drawing a line with the lasso tool and then filling it with a color. So we'll leave it on path. Also under the path options, you have rubber band. The rubber band option just makes it so that there is a line kind of connecting to your cursor. Some people really like it, some people kind of find it annoying. So whatever you are comfortable with, then you can use that. I am going to turn it off. Okay, so in this case, let's just we'll start simple. Let's just pretend that we want to make an outline of the letter T on the stop sign. Since this is just straight lines, we don't have to hold down the Option key or the Alt key, the Command or the Control key. If you wanted to draw in straight lines, you can hold down Shift, but you'll see that this sign is slightly angled, so holding down Shift doesn't help because Shift only goes straight vertical or horizontal or diagonal. So in this case, it's not going to be as helpful. Right, so I am just clicking, and it's just making these straight lines. And then to close the path, you put your cursor over the first anchor point that you drew, and then you're going to see that your cursor has a little circle icon next to it. Whenever you see that, that means whenever you click on that anchor point, it is going to close your path. Next to your layers panel, you'll see that there's a paths panel. Go ahead and click on that. And this is going to show you all the paths that you're creating. So you did not put anything on your layer in your layers panel. It went into the paths panel. As long as it says work path, that means that whenever you save and close Photoshop, this path will go away, even if you save Photoshop. So what you want to do to make it a path that will save for next time, just double click on it and give it a name, and then hit OK. So now I'll always be able to come back to this path and use it if I wanted to. So what would I do with it? Well, I can right click here and I can fill it with a color. I can add a stroke. I can make a selection, so that could be helpful. And I can fill it from there if I wanted to, or delete something or add a mask. And a lot of those options are available for you down at the bottom of the paths panel as well. I'm going to hit Command or Control D to deselect. And the next thing I want to do is draw out the letter P. Now I want to make sure that I do not have the T selected, because if so, it's going to combine those paths. That's not what I want. So if your letter T path is still selected, then just click in an empty area in the gray down here to deselect it, like that. Right, and then zoom in just a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to start by drawing this part of the P, right? So these are all straight lines, and by straight I just mean not curved. So those were pretty simple to draw. However, now I am at the curved part of the line. So if I want to start drawing a curved part of the line, I'm going to put my cursor over the anchor point. You're going to see that it gets the slash mark next to the cursor. So now I can just click and drag, and that's going to make a Bezier handle. I come over to the next part. In this case, it is the end of the path, or in this case, the beginning of the path as well. But I still want this to be an independent curve and be able to adjust it separately from this one. So I'm going to hold down Option or Alt, and I am going to click and drag. Now, those didn't go into the spot that I wanted them to, so now I can hold down Command or Control, and I can select those anchor points, and I can move the handles around as I want. You can still come in and adjust the anchor points as well to however you want. Okay, so you can come in and kind of do that. All right, now I also need to draw the counter for the letter P, because if I were to fill this or make a selection of it now, it would fill in the counter, and we don't want that. So in this case, make sure this work path is still selected. Okay, so I can still see the outline from the pen tool, and I am just going to start creating my path for the counter. Okay, again, I'm going to click and drag, and then Option or Alt, click and drag, and then I'm going to hold down Command or Control to move these handles and anchor points. Okay, now whenever I'm ready to do anything with this, I'm going to double click the path in the Paths panel. I'm going to give it a name, and then you can kind of see like a little outline of it there. I'm going to right click, and you can see like I can make a selection, and then look, there it is. So I could go in and fill this as is, and it would fill it the way that it should without having the counter be filled in as well. Okay, so that was pretty easy. So one of the reasons why we have the pen tool available to us in Photoshop is because sometimes selections aren't that easy. For instance, in the case of these dolphins, their skin has reflective properties, and so if you were just trying to use other selection methods, it might not see that this part of the dolphin is not the water, it's just a reflection of the water. So you would need the pen tool to go in and to create a precise selection around the dolphin. Okay, so in this case, like if I start right here by its head, I'm going to click and drag to make a handle, and then click and drag again, and let's see if I can change the color now. What, yellow? There we go. Yellow stands out really well. All right, I'm going to hold down Command to kind of adjust this a little bit. So now I want to come in and make a new handle and make it an independent curve from this one. Independent meaning if I move the curve that I'm about to create here, I don't want it to affect this one. So I'm going to hold down Option or Alt. You can see I'll get the little caret icon, and I'm going to click and drag, and it's got a little bit of a bend that way. Okay, Option or Alt, click and drag. Option or Alt, click and drag. And then I'm going to hold down Command and kind of pull that out some. Pull this in some. So I think you get the idea that you are just creating an outline around here, and just for the sake of this, I'll close this here. I Option clicked on this because I know the next line that I create, I want it to be straight and not curved. So all I did was Option click, and that tells it, okay, the next line that I draw, do not curve it in any way. And then I Option click there. So same thing, I can turn this into a saved path by double clicking and just dolphin's head mostly. And then you can see I have those options available to me again and make part of the selection. All right. Lastly, I want to talk about how to add spot color or Pantone color into Photoshop. So in this case, I'm going to take the red that's around Rage Against the Machine, and I'm going to use a Pantone color. It could be fitting because anytime you're using a logo, there's a really good chance that you're using a Pantone color. Pantone color gives you the precise color application every time. There is a science behind it. It is mathematically calculating how much ink and what color of ink to lay down onto the paper or canvas or whatever happens to be printed on. So in this case, if I look, I have my background layer. I have a channels panel that has RGB for red, green, and blue. Now, if I just click on one of these, you're going to see that it turns to a grayscale image. In this case, it's not actually turning it to grayscale. It is showing you how much red is shown in that particular document. The lighter something is, the more red it is, or if it's pure white, then that just means that it is white, because white is the presence of all color. All right, so there's red, there's the red that's available in this image, there's the green, and the blue. And if you look closely, blue is usually the channel that has the most noise in it. So if you look in the shadowed areas, you're going to see the noise there. So what we want to do is make a selection of the red and turn it into a Pantone color. One of the easiest ways to do that is go up to your menu bar and choose Select, Color Range. I'm just going to click on the red once and it is going to select it. I am going to hold down Shift. Actually going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to click in a few other places just to make sure it's getting all of this red. And I'm probably going to leave it around 45 fuzziness. That's good. And then hit OK. You can see there are some parts where it didn't get right up against the white. So there's a little trick here. And this works well with high contrast shapes and colors like this. You can go up to your menu bar and choose Select, Grow. Look at that. Super helpful, right? And it's still not 100% precise. You could always come up to Select and then go to Modify, and you can expand it or contract it to make it the size that you want. In this case, we're just going to leave it as is because that's not that bad. We're now going to jump to the Channels panel. And then we're going to hit the menu icon for the Channels panel, and I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. We are going to go down to New Spot Channel. All right, so whenever you choose New Spot Channel, you have the color option, so click on that. And by default, it is set to the color picker. Well, if you click on the Color Libraries button, that is going to take you to the Pantone colors. And you can just come in here and click any of the colors that you want. You can, go one by one. If you know the actual name, then you can type in the name. So if I just type in red, then I'm going to get this red 032 coded. So I'll just choose that one and hit OK. Now, the name that you give it here, this is something you can change. So by default, it is set to the actual Pantone color, but you could always, you could say logo or something like that. For solidity, this is going to look like it's opacity, but it's not the same. When you change the opacity, you're actually changing the color that you have laid down. With solidity, because this is dealing with the Pantone color, it is not changing the opacity. It is just saying how much color do you want me to put down of this pure Pantone color. So maybe you only want me to lay down like one layer of it. So in that case, it might be slightly see-through. So solidity is going to look like opacity because it is going to have transparent properties, but it is not going to be opacity because opacity is changing the color. Solidity doesn't. So we want to make sure that the solidity is 100% and hit OK. And look at that. Now we have a new channel and it is that Pantone red, and if we hide it, we can see it goes away. Now hopefully whenever you look at this, it looks very similar to a mask. So if I grab my paintbrush, and in this case I'm going to have black in the foreground, make this a little bit smaller, and I click and drag, you can see that I am actually painting in more of that red. Let me undo and put my opacity at 100%, and there's that red. So if whenever you draw this, you kind of make the selection a little bit poorly, you make it bad, you can always come in with black and add more of that color in, or if you put white in the foreground, you can come in and get rid of it. Okay, so it's kind of like the opposite of a mask. Now the neat thing about this is that we did not add anything to the layer. We did not add anything to the layer. It is separate. However, because of that, because it's not added directly onto that layer, and because it is on top of the red that already existed, if we were to print this out, this would not be a pure Pantone red because it is going to mix with the red that's underneath. So to set this up properly, what you need to do is you need to make a selection of the Pantone color, and then you need to fill the RGB channels with white because white does not print. So I'm going to hold down Command or Control, and I'm going to click on the icon, the thumbnail icon. So that made a selection of all of it. I'm going to click RGB, and because my background is locked, I could just hit delete, or in this case I will go up, just to show you, you can go up to your menu bar and choose Edit, Fill, and then choose white and hit OK. I'm going to deselect now with Command D or Control D. And now whenever I hide the Pantone red, you can see now the white is there. So in all of these RGB channels, white is there where the Pantone color is. And the reason that you want to put white there is so that way whenever this Pantone color would print, it would not mix in with the red. Okay, so that is pretty much it. Then you would just save this document as a PSD and put it into InDesign or wherever your end result was. Right, so that is it for the pen tool. The pen tool is more of a review, and then just showing you how to do the spot colors. Now, just a side note, there is a limit to how many spot colors you can have in Photoshop, because if you think about it, you wouldn't have that many spot colors in an actual print job because you pay more for the Pantone colors for each one actually. So a company isn't going to want multiple different Pantone colors in there. So my advice to you is try to reuse these as much as you can with the masking properties that we looked at. So if you wanted, I don't know, his pants to be that same red, put black in the foreground and then paint it in. Okay, but do a much better job than what what I just did there. And you could still use selections that would still work as well, but just kind of giving you that little heads up. And that is it for the demo. If you have any questions, as always, please don't hesitate to ask.